Okay, already. This season, we're coaching someone through what so many of us go through.
I'm Alison.
I'm Michelle.
Meet Sophie. She stayed too long, she'll break up, she'll heal, she'll date, she'll spiral. She's you, she's us.
We'll walk with her and you through every phase, from heartbreak to wholeness.
If you're tired of the chaos and ready to thrive in singlehood and in love,
welcome to season 3. Oh,
that was
so
so
close.
good.
Recording in progress. Hello, everyone.
Hello again. So, okay, I mean, we're not gonna go into how long it's been because they don't realize how long it's been and they don't
It's been a week for them. Yeah.
It's been a week. We're wearing different clothes for the people watching.
Exactly.
I literally just posted on Instagram the fact that we were recording like as I was waiting for you. So I think that will be a month ago for in real time.
Wow.
Anyway,
yeah.
Sophie has broken up with her ex.
Mm-hmm. And we left her last time when we spoke. You know, she was just ending this bad relationship after a long process of questioning and struggling and trying to figure out how to fix this relationship. And she realized that she couldn't. So now she decided to make the brave, difficult choice of just putting an end to it.
Yeah, it's a tough choice, and I think, and I think it's such a brave choice as well because breaking up to be single is scary because a lot of us we enjoy kind of companionship and everything, and a lot of people break up because they've got somebody else waiting or that they know that they can jump back fast. But here Sophie is making the brave choice of breaking up because she'd be better off alone. And I think that's so brave to everyone that does that. It's amazing.
It is. And I think most people that I get to talk to about specifically this topic of breaking up and ending a bad relationship, they usually say something along the lines of, but isn't it better than being alone? Because obviously being alone sucks and it's terrible and it's worse than being in any type of relationship. And I think for myself as well, one of the main reasons why I overstayed my welcome in relationships is because I was afraid of being alone and because I was afraid of pulling that trigger and saying enough is enough and this is the end. It's a very, very scary decision to make. Not only because you don't want to end up alone, and not only because you're afraid of not finding anyone, but also because you're so used to being with this person, you don't know what it's like without them, and you don't want to deal with that heartbreak and that sudden change in your whole life. Because when you're breaking up with someone, you're not just breaking up with that person, you're breaking up with a certain lifestyle that you had with that person, especially if you've lived together. But also in general, just there's no more, texting and calling and having dates, and no more interactions and different things that you're so used to, and no depending on them to come help you with this or with that or with consulting or whatever it is. It's like this whole life change.
Yeah, and there's kind of nobody worrying about you if you got home on time, if we're going to work safely, and it's all very, very strange. And so she had, she had a few questions for us, to kind of encumber all this, and so the first question is, why do I still miss him even though the relationship was toxic?
Yeah, and that ties in. Go on.
I think you were going to say exactly what I was going to say, which is it ties into exactly what we were saying.
Yes.
Of just, there's all of that. Yeah, sure. I mean, the relationship was toxic. It was bad for her. But it was just, that there are some good things. And I think that, you miss the good things.
Yeah. I think there's also, even if it's a bad stability, it's still stability where you have this person who's constant and who's there, and he's a part of your life. And even if him being a part of your life or her is good for you, it still gives you a sense of,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to call it, confidence, but like assurance, maybe, that there's this
Yeah.
person who's with you, and 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 so you'd rather be on this stable shaky ground rather than being a complete shaky ground with being alone, because you're not used to it, you don't know what it's like, you're scared of being
Yeah,
alone and
it's
whatever. And again, you miss more than just that person. You miss the feeling of being in a relationship, of saying that, oh, I'm not single, I have a partner, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have someone. And you miss the idea a lot of times of not being alone, of having that person to call, of having that person to text, of having that person to come help you with something, or to discuss changes or life choices and decisions that you want to make and don't want and can't decide alone. So there's a lot of aspects that go into it.
yeah, and I think it, to kind of go back to one of the things you were saying, it's the devil you know. I mean,
Yeah,
sure,
exactly.
this wasn't comfortable, but you knew about it. It's out of the frying pan into the fire type of thing. You never know the devil you know type of thing. So I think that's, that I think is completely normal, and I will rarely use the word normal without an asterisk, because, what is normal? But I think this is completely normal. I think anybody who's had anything for a long while, you kind of miss it. I think, you know, I won't, go so far as to say for people who have cancer, but for my pregnancy, it was, I don't know if you remember, it was 9 months of just me being tired,
Hmm.
of me just being tired
Yeah.
and then having pain and everything. But I kind of miss it because it
Yeah.
was 9 months and there was some good aspects about it and everything. And, I can actively remember thinking, I'm never doing this again. It was so difficult and it's so painful and so uncomfortable and everything. But I still kind of miss it. And, it's same like, I lived in these shitty little flats and there was a lot of bad stuff about them, but I kind of miss them because they represented when I my early 20s, and I flat sharing and partying and everything. And so even the stuff that's bad for you or that brought a lot of negativity did bring some positive things. And I think it's okay to miss that. I think it's also a bit healthy. You don't want to hold on to just the negative stuff your whole life. Life's too short and this world's too shitty to hold on to the really, really shit stuff all the time. You want to remember the good stuff. I think, you want to transform that missing into nostalgia.
Yeah. As long as you remember not to use that as an excuse to
To go
maybe I
back.
should, yeah. I think it is healthy to look at something in a positive light and not just dwell on everything that went wrong. I think if you miss something and you miss the relationship, it's a sign that you are in a healthy, good place, more or less, of like, I'm able to look at this in a positive way, but it doesn't mean you have to go back to it. And I
Yeah.
think especially when you're facing something that's completely unknown to you, because we have a tendency to forget what life is like before. And especially with being single, and if you haven't been single for so long, or if you haven't been single for a long time at a time, then you tend to just not remember what it's like to be by yourself,
Yeah.
to know who you are on your own, and to know who you are without this other person. And I think that's kind of scary.
Yeah,
And
of course it is.
it's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to face this head on and I'm going to go into it and I'm just going to go for it without hesitation, because it isn't something that you can take lightly. So then, you think back to where you were and how comfortable it was and how convenient, and so you miss that. You miss having that solid something in your life, whatever it is. And in a way it's good, but also in a way you don't want it to prevent you from finding that solid ground on your own and in your new life, to help you move forward and to help you build a stronger base for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think change is always scary, and
Yeah.
doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but I still think it's scary.
Yeah.
So how long do you think she'll feel this way?
Well, I don't think there's a set time, and I don't think that it is something that can be measured. I don't think it's like, there's this formula, like mathematical formula of like, the X amount of years or months you together means that you're
Yeah.
with them a Y amount of time. I think it's very individual, and you should allow yourself to feel it. I think avoiding feeling and trying to be strong or trying to suppress it or whatever it is just not healthy. You're allowed to feel what you're feeling, and you're allowed to soak it up a bit and to be there, but you're not allowed to dwell on it too much and allow yourself to drown in it. And I think you need to give yourself your own time frame of like, I'm not gonna dwell on this for more than a week or a month or whatever it is. I just think you need to set for yourself a realistical time and stick to it, so that way you're not being too strict on yourself, but also not allowing yourself to drown in it too much.
Yeah. It I was thinking about this, about just give it time, and I don't this I give it time. It makes me feel uncomfortable until I realized if you compare it to kind of cutting yourself or being ill or things like that, people say give it time, give it time. It's true. Time does heal all wounds in
Yes.
quote marks, but you still have to do things it's not just
Amen.
time. And
Amen.
so, for example, with a deep cut, you have to, bandage it up, and then it'll take time to heal. But you can't just leave it there, otherwise it'll
Yeah.
fester, or just you hemorrhage or something. And if you're ill, you can't just give it time. You have to, you know, relax, slow down, stay home, kind of, eat a bit better, give yourself the tools to feel better. I think getting over a breakup and feeling this way, yeah, there's gonna be time, but there are we'll talk. This is the whole point of this coaching and this podcast and everything is, helping her through these steps of just what to actively do to kind of help time forward. Because I think if you're just gonna, make time the only thing that's gonna help, it will take years. I mean, it will
Yeah.
just take years. So how long, so I agree with, this, that there's the thing about, if you were together for 2 years, then it's 2 months. If you were, these things, that doesn't make sense because, I know people who were together for 7 years and they got over the breakup really fast because the last 4 years were tragic. And I
Yeah.
know people who were in a relationship for 9 months and it was so intense and they got so swept up that years later they're still not over it. And, you know, I'm not saying that either of these things are perfectly normal, perfectly healthy. I'm just saying there's no mathematical, equation, as you said. I think the more she does that's sustainable, the better it will be. And
Yeah.
the key thing is sustainable, because if she goes out tomorrow and starts a diet, goes to the gym, goes to the hairdresser, buys new clothes, changes job, and does, all these outrageous changes, then, there's a good chance everything will come crashing down. So I think it's, selecting the steps that are sustainable, implement them, and then, and it'll go fast. It'll go,
Yeah.
if you go in the optic of, I'm going to do something healthy for myself and my lifestyle, then getting over the bad relationship is going to be so fast. And
Yeah.
it's, and that
Yeah.
grief is just going to leave her.
Uh-huh.
It'll just become, missing her ex and everything. It's just going to become her. Those were, and that was a nice time. I have a good example.
Mhm.
My first boyfriend, we were together for 4 or 5 years. I see, I can't even remember 4 or 5 years. And we broke up, and I went, it was a roller coaster, and then, first boyfriend and everything. And today with JT, I talk about what I did with this guy, one of which was, having a road trip in France and just having, these little stops and everything. And we were in our 20s. So we just, really kind of had these, shitty little motels and had backpacks and things. And it was great. And I'm able to talk about it in a, we did that. It was great. We saw 10 little villages in France over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And I'm talking about it with, if nostalgia is a big word, but with fondness. And I think that's the objective. You just want to move forward, get over it, and remember the good stuff.
Yeah. So going back to the beginning, working my way through all the amazing things you just said. I thought about this not long ago that, there's this thing about how time heals wounds, as you said, or time does its thing, as we say in Hebrew. Yeah, sure. Time helps. The more time passes, the less it hurts and the easier it is. But if you're just depending on time, then it's not going to do anything. In fact, I think if you're not doing anything, and especially if you're dwelling on the relationship, time is just going to make it worse. And I think in order for time to help you heal, you need to take active steps to heal, and you need to help yourself, and you need to do things with that time that will help you get to the place that you want to get to. And saying about, doing all these changes in your hair and clothes and whatever. And I think making any change, or especially drastic changes at this time, is a big mistake, because you're already going through a huge change. And coping with one big life change at a time is difficult as it is. So adding to that all these different changes, even if it's small minor changes to your appearance, it's just going to confuse you even more, especially actually with your appearance, because you barely recognize yourself alone anyway. It's like changing your appearance, like who knows who this person staring back at me is. So I think you need to moderate your changes in your life. Hold on to what is stable, what what's the same. If it's your friends, if it's your family, if it's your career, if it's your passions or your hobbies, I think this is a time to hang on to the things that give you stability and things that are the same, in order to cope with the changes, the big change that is going on. And I think that will also help you, that will, with time, will get easier. And then you can slowly start introducing more changes in your life as you see fit, and not just because, oh my God, I just went through a breakup, so I need to change everything about my life. No, you don't need to change anything. First of all, you need to cope with the breakup. You need to cope with your coming in to this so-called new life with yourself. And then we can talk about, the next changes that you want to make.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And we can move on to Sophie's next question, which is it normal to feel like I'm going backwards in my feelings? My healing, sorry. Oh, feelings also works, but I think you were just saying that, before, and you said something about not liking the word normal. I don't like it either. I think abnormal should be normal. There's no normal, there's no right or wrong way to feel. If you're feeling it, then it's okay, because you're human and you have these emotions for a reason, and you're supposed to be feeling them. And there will be moments where you feel regression, and that's okay, and I think as long as you don't let them hold you back, and you know that this is just a momentary slip, and you believe that you can get out of it, then it shouldn't be a problem.
I think what you just said kind of brought me back to my parenting, where basically we're so eldest, my bonus daughter, she's 5, and so we're just having tantrums and everything, and they say that you can tell them what you're feeling is valid, the way you're expressing yourself is not. And how I'm going to parallel that to this is just like, all feelings are valid, absolutely all feelings. It's how you deal with them and how you let them out that may or may
Yeah.
not be okay. And so, is it normal to feel like I'm going backwards in my healing? Yeah, I think I would just take away the word backwards, because feeling anything means that you're going forwards.
Yeah.
I think what she means by this is the stages of grief. There's this and then there's this, and I think going back to this and this and this, and it's not linear. Healing is
Yeah.
never ever linear. And and just like working out or going to the gym or things like that, there are things that some days might be easy and then the next day it's difficult, but the day before yesterday I was doing it fine and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling things and working through emotions means you're going forward.
Yeah. And I think to tie into your analogy of working out and everything, I think it's also every workout is dependent on not just the specific workout that you did, it's dependent on the whole day, of how you slept, what you ate,
Yeah.
or you drank, or what you did, on how much you packed into the day, so how much energy you have. And I think that also impacts how you feel, especially with going through a breakup, where you have certain days where you wake up after a refreshing night's sleep and you have an exciting day ahead of you, and there's a lot of distractions and it's a good day. But then there are days where you have more time to be stuck in your head, or you're just feeling
Yeah.
tired, or you're just not feeling great. So dealing with these thoughts and dealing with these feelings is much harder. And so I think it's okay to have these days where you suddenly feel like, I just don't want to cope with it. Like sometimes I when I'm trying, I like have these moments where I'm just like either tired or not feeling well, and I try to think of the things that I need to do, and it just overwhelms me. And I try to make myself just trust myself to cope with these things later when I do have the energy, and not when I'm trying to fall asleep, or not when I'm trying to rest, or not when I'm not feeling well. And at the moment, just feel the feelings and rest, and try to focus on something that gives me back my energy. And then later you can deal with it, understand why you're feeling that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does all make sense to me, but I know how your mind works. I think
Yeah.
another way of saying it would be, not only is it okay to do all of these things, but I think it's necessary to be going through these stages,
Yeah.
and sometimes going back, because it's compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
Jesus, complicated word. And you can't do it all of it in one go, because it's just too difficult.
Yeah.
So it's you do some of it and then move on to something else, and then come back and do a bit more, and then come back to something else. And I think some people, they just stay 1 week, hold up in their flat, and then just feel all of the feelings for 7 days, 24 hours a day, and then they come out and they're great. I think that's just a tiny minority of people. You have to have the time, the money, the energy, the availability, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sophie can't do that. She's got friends, she's got family, she's got a job.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
so I
most
think,
of yeah.
well, just giving yourself some time, some space to just feel your feelings, and then come back to that
Yeah.
every so often is the best solution.
Yeah. And I think also leaning on what you do have in your life is crucial, whether it's family or friends or your work or your colleagues or whoever it is. I think it's a good way to help you cope with your grief. It's not just coping with yourself, or not just bottling up, or you know locking yourself up in your flat, and closing yourself off to the world. I think it's actually a healthy step towards healing, is talking about it, is letting it out, is sharing. Or even if it's not just talking about it, if it's just focusing on your work, or focusing on your hobbies, or focusing on other things that just get you out of your own head for a bit, without avoiding the topic, but just it's a way to cope with it, because you can't just sit in your head the whole day long. It'll just drive you crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to tie it all up.
Yeah, I agree. God, Michelle, wow, timekeeping. I'm impressed.
You see?
I'm impressed. I was kind of looking at the clock. I was just like, okay, we're going to have to start wrapping up soon. These are our new resolutions for the new season and everything. And I know that that is just not your biggest strength. So I'm
No,
impressed.
Not.
I'm
Thank
impressed.
You. Thank you very
I
much.
agree. I think that's a good way to wrap up. I think we need to remind people to subscribe.
Yes. And let us know about your own breakups and your own grief that you went through and how you coped with it.
Yeah. And support us on Patreon. By the time this is out, it will be up and running. Probably more information in the description, because right now it's not. But anyway, all of this to say, go for it, Michelle.
No, I just wanted to say we want to keep creating this content for you, and we need you to help us do that. So
we do.
Yeah.
And all the feelings are normal, and let's see what Sophie's got cooking for us next week.
Yes. See you then. Bye-bye. That's it for this episode of Pop Culture Cupid.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We're glad you're here.
Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit for more behind-the-scenes real talk.
And if you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon.
Until next time, be kind, be happy, be healthy, and remember, heartbreak isn't the end.
It's the plot twist.